You wake up, you eat, you work, you scroll, you sleep, you repeat. But here's the question no one wants to answer. Are you living, or are you just existing? Because most people spend their entire lives mistaking routine for purpose, comfort for fulfillment, and survival for meaning. They move through the days like ghosts in their own story, never once stopping to ask if the life they're living is the life they actually want. And the tragedy isn't that they don't know the answer. The tragedy is that they're too afraid to ask the question. This is not a motivational speech. This is a mirror. And what you'll see in the next 10 minutes might be uncomfortable, but it will also be true. You'll discover the single difference between people who merely exist and those who truly live. You'll learn why most of what you're chasing is keeping you trapped, and you'll walk away with a philosophy so ancient and so practical that it has guided emperors, slaves, and seekers for over 2,000 years. This is about reclaiming your life before it's too late. Let's begin with a hard truth. You are not as free as you think you are. You believe you're making choices, but most of your decisions are made by fear, expectation, and habit. You say yes when you want to say no. You stay silent when you should speak. You chase things you don't even want because someone else told you they mattered. The Stoics had a word for this. They called it living according to opinion, not nature. And opinion is a cage dressed up as freedom. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor who ruled an empire but sought to rule himself, wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He understood something most people never do, that real freedom isn't about controlling your circumstances. It's about controlling your response to them. You can't control the storm, but you can control the ship. And most people spend their entire lives trying to calm the ocean instead of learning how to sail. But here's where it gets deeper. The reason you feel stuck isn't because your life is hard. It's because your life lacks intention. Existing is passive. Living is active. Existing is drifting. Living is steering. And the moment you stop waiting for permission, for the right time, for the perfect conditions, is the moment you stop existing and start living. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, said it best. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. You're not running out of time. You're running out of attention. You're spending your days on things that don't matter and wondering why nothing feels meaningful. Think about your average day. How much of it is truly yours? How much of it reflects what you value, what you believe, what you want to become? Most people can't answer that question because they've never designed their life. They've inherited it from parents, from culture, from algorithms. They're living someone else's script and calling it their own. And the cost of that is enormous, because when you live without intention, every day feels the same. Not because nothing changes, but because nothing means anything. Now let's flip the script. What if the problem isn't that your life is empty? What if the problem is that it's too full? Full of noise, full of distraction, full of things that feel urgent but aren't important. Epictetus, who was born a slave and became one of the greatest teachers of Stoicism, taught his students this. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. Modern life teaches you the opposite. It teaches you to want more, need more, consume more. And the more you consume, the less satisfied you become. You're not empty because you don't have enough. You're empty because you're chasing the wrong things. Here's a modern example. You scroll through social media and see someone living a life that looks perfect, traveling, thriving, glowing. And suddenly, your life feels small. But what you're comparing isn't real. You're comparing your internal reality to someone else's external highlight reel. And that comparison is stealing your peace. The Stoics would call this a failure of judgment. You're giving power to an illusion. And every time you do that, you move further away from yourself. So what does it mean to live instead of exist? It means waking up with purpose, not by accident. It means choosing discomfort over distraction. It means asking yourself every single day, Am I living according to my values, or am I living according to my fears? And here's the twist. Living doesn't mean you'll be happy all the time. It means you'll be present. It means you'll feel everything, the pain and the beauty, the fear and the courage, and you'll stop running from it. Because existing is numb. Living is awake. Before we go deeper, I want to ask you something. If this is resonating with you, if something in these words is stirring something in your chest, do me a favor. Subscribe to this channel. Not because I need it, but because you do. Because this kind of content, the kind that makes you think instead of just feel good, is rare. And if you found it, you need to protect it. Leave a comment below with one word that describes how you're feeling right now. Just one word. Let's build a community of people who are done existing and ready to live. Now, let's talk about fear. Because fear is the warden of the prison you're living in. You don't pursue your dreams because you're afraid of failing. You don't speak your truth because you're afraid of judgment. You don't leave what's killing you because you're afraid of what's unknown. And so you stay. You stay small, safe, silent. But here's what the Stoics understood. Fear doesn't protect you. It paralyzes you. And the life you're protecting by playing it safe is the same life that's slowly dying from neglect. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Frightened of change? But what can exist without it? Everything you want is on the other side of change. Every version of yourself that you admire, every story that inspires you, every person you respect, they all walked through the fire of transformation. And yes, it hurt. Yes, it was uncertain. But they chose growth over comfort. They chose living over existing. And that choice, that single choice, is available to you right now. Not tomorrow. Not when you're ready. Now. But let's be honest. You're not just afraid of failing. You're afraid of succeeding. Because success means responsibility. It means you can't blame your circumstances anymore. It means you have to own your life. And that's terrifying. It's easier to say I can't than to say I won't. It's easier to point at obstacles than to admit you've been standing still by choice. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And most people are not masters. They're passengers. They're spectators in their own existence. Here's a reflection. Pain is inevitable. Suffering is optional. Pain is what happens to you. Suffering is the story you tell yourself about the pain. You lose a job? That's pain. You tell yourself you're a failure? That's suffering. You face rejection? That's pain. You tell yourself you're unlovable? That's suffering. The Stoics trained themselves to separate the two, to face reality without adding layers of fear, shame, or catastrophe. They didn't deny the pain. They refused to drown in the story. And that refusal is what gave them peace in the middle of chaos. Let's bring this into your life. You're stressed about money, relationships, health, the future. But how much of that stress is the actual problem, and how much is the story you're telling yourself about the problem? You're not just worried about losing your job. You're catastrophizing your entire life collapsing. You're not just hurt by what someone said. You're replaying it, adding meaning to it, letting it define you. And every time you do that, you give away your power. You turn pain into suffering. You turn a moment into a prison. Now here's the reversal. What if pain is the compass? What if discomfort is the sign you're growing? What if everything you're avoiding is exactly what you need to face? The Stoics didn't seek pain, but they didn't run from it either. They understood that strength is built in resistance, that courage is born in fear, that wisdom comes from mistakes. You've been treating discomfort like the enemy, but it's actually the teacher. And every time you choose comfort over growth, you're choosing to exist instead of live. Think about the people you admire, the ones who've built something meaningful, who've survived something terrible, who've stood for something true. They didn't get there by avoiding discomfort. They got there by walking into it, by choosing the hard conversation, by doing the work no one sees, by failing in public and trying again. They didn't wait to feel ready. They acted before they were ready. And that action, that courage in the face of uncertainty, is what transformed them from people who existed into people who lived. So here's the practical step. Today, right now, choose one thing you've been avoiding and face it. Not perfectly, not fearlessly, just face it. Send the message, make the call, start the project. Have the conversation. Stop waiting for the right moment. The right moment is the one you create by acting. Seneca said, "Begin at once to live." Not later, not when it's easier, now. Because every day you wait is a day you're choosing to exist instead of live, and you don't get those days back. Let's go deeper into meaning. You think meaning is something you find, like a treasure buried somewhere out there. But the Stoics taught the opposite. Meaning isn't found, it's made. You create it through your choices, your actions, your values. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi concentration camps and later founded logotherapy, wrote, "Life is never made unbearable by circumstances, but only by lack of meaning and purpose." He watched people in the most horrific conditions imaginable either collapse or endure. And the difference wasn't strength or luck, it was meaning. The people who had a reason to survive, survived. The people who lost their reason, faded. You might not be in a concentration camp, but you're in a different kind of prison. A prison of distraction, of comfort, of unfulfilled potential. And the key to that prison is meaning. When you know what you stand for, nothing can break you. When you know what you're living for, nothing can stop you. But when you have no reason, no purpose, no direction, every obstacle feels insurmountable. Because you're not just facing the obstacle, you're facing the emptiness behind it. Here's the final reflection. Death is not the tragedy. Living without intention is. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself that he was going to die. Not to be morbid, but to be awake. To remember that time is finite and precious, that every moment wasted is a moment lost forever. He wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." That's not depressing, that's liberating. Because when you remember you're going to die, you stop living like you have forever. You stop putting things off. You stop waiting for permission. You start living like your life actually matters. Because it does. So here's the closing truth. You are not here to exist. You are not here to survive. You are not here to play it safe, stay small, and hope no one notices. You are here to live. Fully, bravely, intentionally. And the difference between existing and living is not what happens to you. It's what you do with what happens to you. It's the choice you make every single day to either drift or steer, to numb or feel, to hide or show up. You already know the answer. You've always known. The question was never, can I live? The question is, will I?